representatives who have stepped aside voluntarily. So we're looking at what should happen in that respect. I'm not sure, Comrade Andres, if we can put that on the screen.
Comrade TG, Comrade Obakeng is projecting. I think we are on that section now.
Okay. Yes. Comrade Obakeng, go down, because the first part is really quoting what the guidelines are saying. Yeah. Let's start at number 9. So here, comrades, we are saying that during the period when he or she has stepped aside as an elected office bearer, we are saying here that such an office bearer may not carry out the duties and responsibilities of his or her office, may not represent the organization publicly or in any other forum, may not make public pronouncements on matters related to the organization, may not engage in mobilization of ANC structures or any other organizations or individuals, including on his or her stepping aside matters related thereto. Go down, Comrade. Yes. And then goes further to say, during the period of the full-time office bearer employed by the organization step aside, he or she will still be entitled to remuneration or other benefits in line with his or her condition of employment. And then lastly, the decision by the elected office bearer to step aside must be reviewed by the relevant structure. So if it's in the province, it will be by the PSC. If it's national, it will be by the NEC. Comrades will recall that in the guidelines were said step aside can be reviewed periodically, at least once a year. So here we are suggesting that such a review can take place every 6 months. The affected office bearer must update the SGO. In terms of the province, it will be the PSO on a monthly basis regarding progress with their case. Then we go to looking at public representatives. This will then include a minister, deputy minister, MEC, MMC. I guess we will also have to add the mayors and premiers. I think it's something we can look at. But basically, it's all public representatives. We are saying here that as well, once you step aside from those positions, you may not occupy any executive office. So in other words, basically you become a backbencher if you are in parliament or legislature, or if you are in a municipality, you will be an ordinary councillor once you step aside from an executive body. Same with the speaker, deputy speaker, etc., the whips, the chairperson of committees. Once you step aside, you can occupy any of those positions. Secondly, you can represent the organization publicly or in any other forum, including speaking in the legislative body, or any other responsibility that in those bodies. However, and then the third one is also you can make public pronouncements on matter related to the organization. You can mobilize, do mobilization of ANC structures or any other organization. So it's similar to the first one. Go down, Comrade Obakeng. Yeah. However, we are saying that during that period of step aside, once you become a backbencher, you will be entitled to remuneration in that context. So obviously you won't be paid the salary of a member of the executive. You will be paid where you are as a backbencher. We are saying that those who are in the legislative bodies will still be expected to vote when there's voting by the organization. Yes, so although they may not chair committees or speak publicly, but if there's voting, they'll be expected to vote. During the period that the public representative step aside, he or she will still be entitled to remuneration. I've already said that in terms of where you are as a backbencher. And then lastly, we're also saying that this will be reviewed by the relevant structure from time to time. And on a monthly basis, such an affected member will have to report to the Secretary General's office or the Provincial Secretary's office progress with regard to their case. So this, comrades, was really a way of trying to bring finality on what we mean by step aside, what happens during the period that a comrade has stepped aside, so that there are guidelines that can be used by the structures in terms of managing this process. Okay, Comrade, I think those are the two main issues. Maybe let me also indicate that I don't know if I have this on the screen. The officials also discussed the issue of appeals. Comrade will recall that in the guideline under 3.1.8, provision is made that those who want to appeal against the recommendation of the Integrity Commission can do so, and the appeal goes to the NEC. But we have suggested that instead of the NEC sitting as the entire NEC to hear appeals, that the NEC, in line with the recommendations of or in line with the provision in the guideline that say the NEC or PEC may establish an independent committee. So we are suggesting that there should be probably a panel of 5 or 6 people who will hear the appeals on behalf of the NEC and report to the NEC, and the NEC then takes a final decision when there's an appeal. However, in the section on the guideline that deals with temporary suspension, there is no provision there for appeal, but in the section that deals with suspension where people are charged, there is a reference to review appeal under section 25.67 of the Constitution. And it reads as follows. It says, during a temporary suspension, the member shall not be entitled to exercise any of his or her rights in terms of the Constitution, save for attending disciplinary proceedings and enforcing his or her right of appeal or review. So we thought that when it comes to temporary suspensions, we will be guided by the Constitution in terms of what happens, whether you have the right to appeal a temporary suspension. But when you are suspended and charged, Rule 2567 makes this provision. So it may well be that when people appeal here, those appeal bodies will decide whether they will hear appeals or not. But what we want the NEC to approve is that indeed the NEC may appoint a panel that will hear appeals, but the NEC itself remains the appeal body and the final arbiter on all these matters. So the appeal panel will probably just be a mechanism to process matters for the NEC. We did discuss names in the NWC, but we want to relook at it again because you need to contact people and see if they are available. So I want to suggest that the officials, once again, once the NEC agree that we can have such a panel, then relook at the names and take them to the NWC for finality. That's our report on this matter. Comrade Chair, just whilst I'm still on the platform, just to say, with respect to the finances of the organization, we are preparing a detailed report that will go to the officials on Monday, and then it can come back to the NEC on the state of our finances, what the plans we are putting in place, and it will include a number of recommendations that the officials said we must look at, including the possibilities of increasing levies, membership fees, etc. It's a very comprehensive report, and we are also looking at what we call right sizing of the organization. And the officials have agreed that we'll probably have to cut our staff by 50%. But those reports will come to the NEC. A lot of work has been undertaken. Comrade Phoebe is leading the process of restructuring and right sizing. And then there's another team that is looking at crowdfunding and all those aspects. We are also busy now looking at fundraising for elections, and all those reports will go to the officials on Monday. Thank you, Comrade Chair.